Hi. In this lesson, we will look at immigration and immigrants and immigration policy. This still is part of the Finnish Political Culture and System course. First of all, Finnish Immigration Service has a website that you can consult with all the questions that this lesson doesn't answer. The social psychology behind immigration centers around acculturation. And it answers the question, what happens when people move to another country? Moving to another country forces people to come into contact with a culture not their own, and also forces the people living in that country to come into contact with a culture not their own. Therefore, it is a meeting of cultures, and it does have psychological and societal elements and outcomes. Berry, in 1997, showed that there are four main strategies that cover both the host and immigrant approaches. Individuals' acculturation strategy can differ also between their private and their public lives. This is something which is studied a lot in Finland. Foremost researchers now are Carmela Liebkind, Inga Jasinski-Lahti, and Tuuli Mähänen. So, in looking at how we react to this meeting of cultures, there are four main strategies. One is to maintain one's own culture while wanting to be in contact also with the host culture. This is called integration. To retain one's own culture but to reject the host culture and not wanting to be in contact with it is called separation. This results in ghetto-like situations or enclaves where people from a certain culture live among themselves without having any real contact with the host nation. And this, of course, can cause a lot of problems and friction. Then there's a strategy where the coming people are rejecting their own culture, whereas they at the same time embrace the host culture. This can be called assimilation. So this is a strategy where people are actively forgetting what they were part of in order to embrace the new whole they want to be part of. Some countries also prefer this sort of immigration policy. Then the fourth and the least functional one is where the own culture and the host culture are rejected. And this results in marginalization, where people are left outside both their own culture and left outside the host culture. Finland, as you can see from the bold and the coloring of the word, prefers integration. Research has, however, shown that 27% of Finns do not personally know a single immigrant. And the greatest challenge of integration for foreign experts who are immigrating to Finland is to find Finnish friends. 16% of immigrants have never visited a native Finn's home. And 33% of Finns hope that more immigrants are coming only if they are here to do menial jobs. The problematic picture is complicated further by the research finding that on a scale from 0 to 4, where 0 means no contact and 4 means a lot of contact, the average contact between the Finnish majority and Russian minority from the Russian minority's point of view, from the Finnish majority's point of view, was 1.1. So hardly any. Whereas the average contact of Russian immigrants with Finnish people was way higher, 3.5. That means that a lot of Finns do not actively seek to be in contact with the immigrants coming here. This is a problem. Why? Because it has been shown that interpersonal contact is one of the most effective ways to reduce prejudice between majority and minority group members. Reduction of prejudice is very important in the maintenance of a functioning society where everybody can find their place. What must these interpersonal contacts then be like in order to achieve this reduction of prejudice? They must take place between majority and minority group members of equal status that have common goals that they are striving for, and where they can see that also their groups collaborate, cooperate. There needs to be personal interaction or stories about successful, positive personal interaction. Even if you just hear about somebody having these positive contacts, that makes you wanting to have them for yourself and succeeds in reducing prejudice. Also, a very important component is that there must be the support of authorities, law, or customs to enhance these contacts and to reduce prejudice. The contact should encourage friendly, helpful, egalitarian attitudes and condemn the in-group, out-group comparisons, where we think of in terms of us and them, and us being better than them or them being better than others, than us. Immigration policy in Finland is based on fundamental values: the inviolability of human dignity, the freedom and rights of the individual, and the promotion of justice in society. This is at the heart of the Finnish legal system. The immigration policy is also based on the legislation and agreements Finland is part of, the EU legislation and other international agreements, such as the European Convention on Human Rights or the UN Convention Against Torture. Immigration policy is also based by more changing objectives, which are established by the Finnish government in turn. And at the present moment, they focus on employment questions and non-discrimination. The migration strategy of Finland have three principles. First of all, Finland is an open and safe country. Well-managed migration takes society's capacity and safety into account, and that means that it attracts people, protects them, and says no to human trafficking. The question of capacity is something which is right now being discussed, as there is a greater influx of immigrants than before. The second principle is that everyone can find a role to play. All can participate in the further development of Finnish society. This means that migrant communities are treated as active subjects and participants rather than objects or recipients of services and measures. Therefore, in order for everybody to be able to play a role, they need education. Everybody needs work and needs to have a language with which to communicate. Therefore, either learn Finnish or learn Swedish. And everybody also needs their family around them to encourage them to be active members of the society. The third principle is that diversity is part of everyday life. Discrimination occurring in different areas of life, such as employment, must be monitored systematically, and it is illegal. Politicians, the media, public authorities, and civil society organizations play a key part in influencing the public debate about migration and encouraging it, and encouraging people's impressions of migration to be more realistic and more positive. The goals of immigration policy is that it fosters integration. That means that people who come here are allowed and encouraged to maintain their own culture while they also embrace and understand and participate in Finnish culture. Comparing, for instance, to the US government's previous policy, which favored assimilation of that or some other countries, where all are invited to participate in the larger whole, forgetting their own culture or at least immersing it in the host culture, Finland differs in its position in this. The goals of the policy is also a very firm no to discrimination. Discrimination is illegal. It is prohibited to discriminate on the grounds of age, ethnic or national origin, nationality, language, religion, belief, opinion, health, disability, sexual orientation, or other personal characteristics. If you want to know more, visit equality.fi pages. What is integration and what does it look like? What does it mean when we are adjusted to one another and are able to function together? Integration means that you have all the skills and the competencies and practices necessary to actively participate in your new country. These include some knowledge of Finnish and Swedish and information about the Finnish society, which is something this course, with all its lessons, is doing. So in some way, integration means to understand in depth what makes Finland tick. How has integration in Finland succeeded? There was a study done in 2013 which gave an overall review of integration, and the Ministry of Employment and Economy published it. And this research showed that the longer an immigrant has been in Finland, the closer his or her living conditions are to those of the native population. There were, however, differences among immigrant groups, and these differences were quite great. And also, the situation of young people is particularly problematic, and gender also impacts the integration and at what level it is. Most of the immigrants in Finland come from other EU countries. In 2012, this meant that about 52% of the people moving to Finland were from EU countries. Integration for people coming from a similar culture is easier because the cultural change or the cultural shock is not that great. It is easier, therefore, to find cultural affinity, to understand the culture. Maybe education is similar. So also the immigrants coming from vastly different cultures face bigger challenges in achieving integration. Maybe also linguistically. Finnish and Swedish might not be that easy to learn coming from further away. Also, the immigrants coming here, especially women who have a lot of children to take care of, might find opportunities for integration coming their way more slowly. What about refugees and the refugee situation in Finland? Refugees and asylum seekers and their families who have been granted asylum in Finland, you can see the chart tracking the changes from 1992 to the end of 2014. And you can see the amount of refugees steadily increasing after years of remaining at a fairly stable level. Refugees in Finland are protected by the international treaties and conventions under which Finland is obliged to provide international protection to those who need it. This obligation is based on the Geneva Refugee Convention and Human Rights Conventions and EU legislation. Finland takes in quota refugees, about 750 people per year. The seekers of asylum who come here, for instance, for fear of persecution in their country of origin, are between 1,000 and 4,000 annually, but between almost 40 years, from 1973 to 2012, altogether the seekers of asylum numbered 41,000. This has dramatically changed because in 2015 there were around 32,000, so between 30 and 35,000 refugees coming to Finland. The government, the Ministry of Interior, is commenting on this in their web pages, that there is no explicit reason for the rapid growth of asylum applications in Finland. Compared to other Western European nations, there is no particularly attractive social security system, employment situation, or other pull factors in Finland, perhaps apart from the fact that Finland is a good and safe country to live in. The primary reasons for the growing number of asylum seekers can be found in the countries of origin and transit. Therefore, Finland also seeks to endeavor to promote the well-being and security of people in their countries of origin, as we can see and heard in the previous lesson about the foreign and security policy Finland has adopted. How to become a citizen, then, lastly? The requirements of becoming a citizen of Finland is that your identity has been established beyond doubt. You have reached the age of 18 years. You've met the residential period requirements, which in Finland is 4 years, meaning that you've lived in Finland for a sufficient length of time. You meet the integrity requirements. So you have to be a person of integrity rather than having criminal or other sort of convictions behind you. You've not neglected your payment obligations. You have established your means of livelihood, so you've found gainful employment. And you have sufficient language skills so that you know either Finnish or Swedish at a level which allows you to participate in what goes on. Now it's time for you to think. What are the norms of hospitality and welcoming strangers in your country? How are the immigrants treated? Refugees, asylum seekers, and immigrants definitely are part of what makes Finland tick.